very much for coming. I appreciate it. I've been involved with this board for 23 years, and this is the most attention the town plan has ever gotten. And we appreciate that. Would have been nice the time it got rewritten the last time, or maybe the time before, but hey, let's start somewhere. So the way we're going to work this tonight is we're going to hear, as we always do, from the applicant first, and then we will hear from you. If you have a spokesperson for your group as a whole, we would rather that than hearing the same thing over 40 times or 50 times. If you don't have a spokesperson, we will listen to everyone, but you'll have a 3-minute time limit. There have been a number of people who have presented their concerns to us in letter format. We appreciate that. We will have those copied and available for everyone at some point in time, but not tonight because I don't have access to a printer that prints multiple pages. Any questions before we get started?
I assume everybody's going to introduce themselves.
We can introduce ourselves. That's a good idea. I'm Melissa Manson. I'm the chair. Would you rather introduce yourself or would you like me to do it?
Melanie Riddle, zoning administrator.
Good evening, Demetrius Bolduc, board member.
Peter Burns, board member.
Aaron Forbes, board member.
Harry?
Harry Goldhagen, remote board member.
There we go.
Can I just ask a couple questions before we
Sure.
started? So, just so people that want to be an interested person, so do they actually have to, obviously they've signed in, does that qualify them as an interested person?
Absolutely. You're
Okay.
all here. You're all interested.
Okay, so people on Zoom,
I will put them on the list.
okay, and then people, if they obviously gave you a letter, that makes them an
Absolutely.
interested person. Very good.
Any other questions before we get going? No, would the applicant step up, please?
And all that would be the fence around this.
Where would be best for us to set up here?
What do you?
Block me, I've seen it.
Okay.
I don't make a decision, so.
Well, typically we present to the board, but if you'd like for us to do that differently, just let us know here.
If you can make it visible for everyone, it will probably
Sure.
solve some problems.
You guys need this microphone right here?
Try to keep this as easy as possible here, but
Can you introduce yourself?
yes, absolutely. So my name is Luke Willey. I'm representing Grugiano Engineering on behalf of the applicants. And we have the landowner and applicants here with us, the Hurons. And we're here tonight to present a 9-lot subdivision / PUD to the board. This property is located on Church Road, just up the street here. This is a 21, call it 22 acre parcel that currently contains an existing house, and then a field area, and then there's kind of a wet, kind of marshy area in the center, and then some higher ground on the western end there. What we're proposing is 9-lot subdivision, which would include 7 new units and a common open space lot that would satisfy the PUD requirement. We are clustering everything together, as per the PUD regulations, clustering the buildings in 2 different areas. The open field area would contain 5 of the new houses along with the existing house, which is currently planned to remain. So that'll be rehabbed and a part of the development. And then the other 2 lots would be kind of on the high side of the property. And the open space area, it kind of features what we're showing on this plan as a potential wetland. It's not a mapped wetland, but it does show up on the state database as a strong potential for wetland. So we haven't delineated that. We are not seeing at this point any need to delineate that. We have, we're kind of giving that a wide berth on each side in order to, kind of not have to get into that. And that'll all be, preserved as that part of that open space. The current proposal, we haven't submitted any state permits yet, but the proposal would be for a community wastewater system for the proposed houses down here. We have done soil testing. We've confirmed that the land will support the community wastewater system that we're showing here. And then the 2 additional lots on top of the hill would have their own systems up there. And then everybody would have an individual drilled well. And then due to the amount of impervious and the new state rules with regards to stormwater, we are expecting this will need a stormwater permit. And so, again, we haven't submitted that application yet, but we're expecting to be able to disconnect a large portion of that stormwater and deal with the remainder of it kind of at the low side in the vicinity of the wastewater system. Everything at the top of the hill, we're expecting to be able to disconnect all of that stormwater, so there wouldn't be any significant stormwater infrastructure associated with this project. I think that's kind of a broad overview of the project, and I think at this point, unless you guys want to add something, we're just kind of open up to questions that the board might have. We're happy to address anything, talk about anything in more detail.
Anything that jumps right up at you? I mean, we have a lot of questions from
Sure.
our neighbors.
Sure.
We're sort of here tonight on a gathering mission
Yeah.
to listen to you and to all of them and sort of find out where everyone's at, and then we will deliberate later after we've taken in all of the questions, concerns, and some answers.
So I will add, just to that point, the use that we're proposing here is a permitted use in the regulations. We are not proposing any variances or waivers. Everything, we're trying to be conscious of all of the requirements under the PUD regulations, as well as the town plan, which this is the agricultural rural district, and in that the town plan and the zoning regulations are both consistent, that what is desired for a residential use in that district is for cluster development, PUD, utilizing the PUD regulations. And so that's what we're presenting here tonight. We're trying to do this in a way that meets all the regulations and conforms to the town plan as it currently stands.
Thank you, yeah.
I do have a question, just the PUD would have allowed you to use smaller lot sizes as opposed to, say, just a large subdivision, but it seems like all the lot sizes are still greater than the minimum lot size of an individual lot.
Yeah, I mean, so my understanding with that is, so the zoning, the zoning requirement for this zoning district are 1 acre lots, 1 acre minimum.
Right.
And I think the PUD regulations allow for an applicant to request smaller lots down to, I think, 1/4 acre is how I believe.
Yes.
So we're basically leaving things at minimum lot size according to the zoning district. And we're, not asking for anything.
To go down. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, with the way that we've laid this out and given that we've got, on-site, water and wastewater, I don't see, I don't see reducing those lots any smaller is really gonna be of any benefit or, is gonna be beneficial to the design,
Okay,
in my opinion.
thank you.
Yeah.
And you have not submitted any wastewater or water permits yet?
We've not.
No.
But again, we have done the testing and the design calculations, and we know that we can do it. We know it's gonna work.
You've done wastewater testing. Have you done any water testing? Fairfield's kind of known for no water.
We haven't. I don't have any, I mean, very, very rarely do we see issues with drilling wells, really anywhere in, I would say, northern Vermont. Maybe others out here would say otherwise, but generally speaking, that's not an issue.
In Fairfield, it tends to be an
Okay,
issue.
well, good to know. I mean,
450 feet, maybe you'll get water.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've done a lot of work in the area in Franklin County. Like I say, I've never run into that as being a major hurdle. But we'll certainly look into that.
Anybody else got questions right now?
Not right now.
All right. So, do you have a spokesperson?
That'd be me,
That'd be you.
Speaking for everybody.
self-appointed. I don't pretend to have everyone's concerns, but I think I can address a lot of them.
Albert Menard. Would you mind, Albert, standing up just so everyone can hear you? Just so that we don't repeat all the same things a lot of times and be here all night. Would you have a chair? You have chair.
I'm all right.
Comfortable.
I'm all right now.
So I guess I'd start by asking you if you received the email that Mr. Crossman sent.
I did.
Have
We
you
did. We
read
all have
that?
received it. Today, we received it.
And your thoughts on that matter?
It is too early for us to say. We have not discussed it. We will discuss it after this meeting in deliberative session.
Okay, so we're gonna base what's being said on a town plan that's not complete? So how do we know that we're basing this design on the standards if we don't have the standards to look at?
It's an interesting question. We have a town plan that has been approved, and that's what we're working from right now.
Okay, so the regulations are incomplete, and that was pointed out in the email that you received, correct?
Right.
So you do not agree that they're incomplete?
As I mentioned, we have not discussed it as a group. Both the zoning regulations and the town plan have been approved, as they are.
Interesting. So do you consider the application that complete, knowing that we feel that there's things left out?
I understand.
Somebody's read it, I would think that somebody looked at it,
Oh, lots
but
of people look
I'm
at it.
laboring that point just because I want it to stick. So, not much of a spokesperson, so I'm gonna read this long-winded letter. Says, "We, Albert and Don Menard, are interested persons and request appeal rights to this PUD project, 22111-837 Church Road, Fairfield, Vermont. We appreciate the opportunity to have our concerns heard and addressed in an effort to protect our property, the aquifer that supplies the Fairfield water system, the majestic beauty of our vital open farmland, and suspected wetlands located in a vulnerable location on the property. Accepting this incomplete PUD proposal based on town development regulation plan that has omitted necessary standards to scrutinize the project would be irresponsible in our opinion. We're also very curious how this property listed as 21 acres grew in size to 21.84 acres. We feel this application is incomplete, having had access to drawings that was not legible even after we blew it up in size. Therefore, viewing the map, we're not able to determine information necessary to make proper review. We do not understand why digital copies could not be provided. The application provides an incomplete narrative which fails to reference many applicable standards. Under section 3.5 PUD, Development Review Procedures and Standards, on page 29 it states in 5B, standards in section 7.8E through section 7.8H shall apply to PUDs. If you go to section 7.8, on page 71, the reference is only letter A. In zoning article 4, zoning districts and district regulations, under 4.1A, number 2, agricultural district is listed as a zoning district. Under section 4.5 that lists each district standards, there are no standards for the agricultural zone. This PUD application fails to reference many complexities that go along with the project of this scale, including studies and information from the following entities, to include a review by the fire department, ambulatory services, engineer soil study, engineer study of impacts on proposed water sourcing and wastewater. More information should also be provided surrounding actual boundaries and impacts to the wetlands as well as their buffer zones. Municipal studies, conservation study, traffic study, a construction phasing plan, and future proposal for undeveloped land, which is lot 9. As abutting property owners on a downhill slope to the east of 30 years, we're all too familiar with the drainage patterns of the area. We have grave concerns with issues that any septic could cause not only ourselves, but the adjoining property owners and their active springs. Felt like I left something out there. Could cause not only ourselves, but our adjoining property owners, and could cause issues for ourselves and property owners and their active springs. There, I got that out. Understanding that septic systems will be designed with what are their life expectancies. We do not have confidence in the long-term abilities of any proposed system that impacts our property. Furthermore, we're concerned that our property, including our drinking water supply line, may fall within some type of exclusion zone. We do not find it acceptable for a septic system design to encroach on our property, potentially limiting our ability to use our property as we see fit. As the water operator and representative of the Prudential Board of the Fairfield Village Water System, we must be guaranteed zero impact to quality and production of the aquifer in question. We inquire what steps will be taken to achieve this goal. In reading the Fairfield Town Plan, we support the belief that we must protect our agricultural heritage and land. The town's plan states this vision. Statement number 1, it is the primary and fundamental intention of Fairfield to remain a rural agricultural town. Number 4, Fairfield values preserving our natural landscape and historic features. It's in the town plan on page 5. under the heading Agricultural District. In agriculture lies the economic, social, historic, aesthetic, and scenic character of the town, and the fundamental strength and stability of our local regional economy. Agricultural land represents a vulnerable and irreplaceable resource which must not be wasted. Once it is developed, it will likely be lost forever. Town page number 64. The town plan goes on to say, supporting the future of agriculture in Fairfield. Agricultural soils, open meadowlands, and forests are truly unique, irreplaceable resources due to their unique physical qualities. Preserving such areas is vital to Fairfield's economy and its rural landscape. Poorly planned development and poor management practices threaten these areas. Should be discouraged. It's in Town Plan, page 67. This sketch plan does not prove to us that consideration has been made around proper siting. 5 of the 8 houses proposed to be constructed in the center of a prime agricultural crop field. In reading the Town of Fairfield Land Use and Development Regulations, please see section 8.4, Conservation Resources. It states under C, number 2, farmland and agricultural soils. Farmland and land area with prime and statewide agricultural soils shall be subject to the following provisions. Number 3, for subdivision and PUD applications only, all building envelopes shall be located at field edges or pasture edges, or, if not feasible due to topographical or environmental constraints, on the least fertile soils of the lot, based on the latest NRCS soil survey. What considerations will be given to the developer's ability to complete this project to the size and complexity? Is there a history that provides confidence in said ability? Will bonding be required to protect against failure to meet ethical and quality standards that would be expected? We want to thank you for listening to our concerns. We understand that yours is not an easy job. We would invite you to familiarize yourself with the applicants and their motivations. It is not our belief that this project is meant to protect our community in any way, and we're confident that affordable housing was never considered. This further prevents many members of our community from not being able to achieve home ownership in the town that they were born and loved so much. Considering development of this type should weigh the benefits of personal financial gain and the strain of the town's school system property tax burden. The outcome of this PUD proposal will set precedents on all future PUD requests. Albert and Don Menard.
Thank you, Albert.
Should have
And,
brought water.
You did great. Yeah, Tori.
I have a question for the board. What's the largest PUD/subdivision to date that has been approved? I know,
This is our first PUD.
okay,
The largest subdivision. That's recent. Recent is Tim Reed on Pond Road. That's the most recent.
how many lots was that?
6,
Okay.
5 new and
5 new and 1 existing, 6 total. I guess the largest, maybe Chuck Thomas, but that's years old now.
Jetty, what was Jetty's?
Jetties,
3.
3 or 4, 3 or 4 small.
What was the one on Swamp Road?
I think
That fella?
Fulham's got 7 now, like
7 now.
7 total.
7.
Because he started,
Yeah.
started with smaller, so maybe Jetty, most recent, but I think the largest probably ever is Chuck Thomas, which is, I don't know, I'd have to count them, 10 maybe, 8, 10,
Oh, 8, 10, but it's
8
been
or
probably 20 years ago or something.
yeah, it's a long time ago, Chuck Thomas.
Didn't he have to preserve the agricultural land in order to get that development? Is that it?
I don't remember the details of it, to be frank.
Yeah, 'cause none of
It's,
that,
it's not on agricultural land.
no, none of that. It's all in the upper brush.
Yeah,
Thanks, Melissa. I was just curious.
yeah,
And I think, and on this cover letter I sent you, we appreciate your guys' work. And I know I was in some of the meetings and there was not a lot of public input. So that being said though, I think this is a kind of a precedent-setting application, being the size that it is. That's another reason why, we're requesting that a bylaw be added, or an amendment be added to the bylaws.
I don't think that's legal, but I don't know the answer to that for certain.
It is, there's a Vermont statute that if requested from somebody outside the board, you can either petition, so if you get more than, I think it's 20 or 5% of the voting members of the town, the board can then look at it and propose it. But it's legal and it's in there.
And it can be post-dated,
No, it can't be posted.
like predated before an application?
No.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
So it could be from here forward, but it wouldn't affect this application.
Correct.
This application has been made with the current regulation. I don't
Correct.
think you can, and one of the things you said was hold until done, and I don't know that that would be legal. That's a legal question. I'm not the expert there.
Understood.
Yes?
There are people trying to get into the meeting and
Oh,
they need to be
thank you.
accepted.
I appreciate it. I didn't know this. Sorry, folks. Whose iPad? Can you put your name, please? Thanks, Kathy. Sorry, just one sec here. iPad, could you change your name to your name, please?
Connected and not using it. Oh, now this gets-
Melissa, can I ask a question while you're doing?
Yes, please
So
do.
based on what Tori just
Kathy Bramman.
said, is this application complete?
We haven't looked at it enough
So
yet
if it's,
to be able to say yes or no to that.
so if it's deemed,
But it has nothing to do with what Tori said, as far as I understand
But
it.
you're saying it's not complete, then it's not applied on this date.
right, so
Yes.
then therefore it would need to be reapplied and then maybe.
If it is complete based on the standards today,
Okay,
that's different.
okay. So, just to kind of like it on record that we're questioning the completeness of the application and
So
therefore,
if it's my understanding, and again, that's just me, and we would need probably a legal opinion, but if the application is complete based on the standards as they exist today, then the application is complete. The standards may have issues, as highlighted by Tori, but if the application is complete based on the standards as they exist today, then the application is complete. We may need to fix the standards, but I don't think that that's something that we can make retroactive. But I don't know the answer. That's a legal opinion that I'm not qualified to make. Thank you. iPad. Whoever you are, iPad, please put your name. Change your name from iPad to your name. All right. Would someone else like to come forward?
I
Yes,
just want to add to what she was just saying. It is, I think, generally the consensus that the application is not complete. Whether or not we consider the piece that Tori pointed out and is asking to be amended, whether or not that is or isn't amended, the application is still not complete. And this meeting, it's our understanding, shouldn't really be happening until there is a completed application.
What is your name?
Sorrel Shabbat?
thanks, Daryl.
and I guess just to jump onto that basis, there's also gonna be a final plat review after the sketch plan, which in the meantime, if we do make an amendment to a bylaw, I don't see why that can't be done concurrently before the final plat approval. If we're requesting hydrological studies and, you know, fire marshal studies and all of that, it's a work in progress, so I wouldn't think that the application would completely push out any amendments to the bylaw. Just my opinion.
Yeah,
I just want to get this straight. Is it the opinion of the board at this moment that the application is complete or incomplete?
I can't make a statement about that because we haven't reviewed all the materials
Why do we
as
have
a
this-
group.
Why are we having this meeting then?
Okay,
Because we want your input, that's why.
so can you explain to us what the actual process is? So we're here tonight, we're looking at this, you're gathering information. Our understanding is it's a two-step process. Is that correct?
Melanie, do you want to go through the process?
So, we are having the sketch meeting. If there is anything that the board decides is not complete or additional information would be needed, that would be stipulated in their written decision that will be issued within 45 days after this meeting is closed. They can also make a decision that this hearing will continue to another meeting. That will be determined at the end before and if they choose to go into deliberative session. If it continues, then we would meet here again to go over the same thing. There would be no decision issued on this sketch plan review. If they close the hearing and go into deliberative session, they will make some sort of decision. That, like I said, will be issued within 45 days. It will be mailed by certified mail to anybody listed as an interested party. And you have 30 days to appeal that decision to the environmental court. If they decide to approve with conditions and what they would need to see, those conditions would need to be met before a final application would be complete and received. If they then met those stipulations for a final, we would have another hearing like this and review it. Again, we would only get to that second meeting if the board decides to go and approve the sketch plan. That does not mean they approve it as written. They can approve it as, we need to see these other things. That is the point of the sketch plan, that's why it's not just one single meeting, is so that we can hear everybody's concerns, so that we can get any studies that might be needed or requested by the board. Does that answer the process? So there would be, if we get to that point, there would be another final hearing for a final sketch plan application. The applicant can also decide to change something based on the feedback and the request by the board. So we could see something different if we get to the point of a second meeting.
Hey, my name is John Schreindorfer, I won't read this, but I've been on the Prudential Board for the Water District since its inception back in the 90s. Actually, it started back in the 80s, but I was on the founding member when the water system was put in. So just to give you a rough idea, when we first drilled the first well, we went 1,000 feet bone dry. So,
I was off by a few hundred.
but anyways, my concern is, is that this development and 7 or 8 drilled wells is within, is it a quarter of a mile? So say a quarter of a mile, give or take, of the village water wells. And how is that going to affect that? I know when they drilled for oil, the exploration well, I think it affected Bill's water supply when they drilled that.
Where was that?
down by Ned Brannan's. And until they plug that well, his water didn't come back until they plugged that well. So I'm just saying, and that's about the same distance between the development and the village water. So I'm concerned about that. And the other thing I'm concerned about is the size of the septic fields with drugs, chemicals, other material that leaches out of there into the being as big as they are, infiltrating the water aquifer and contaminating the village water. So those are really big concerns for me.
Yeah.
Lisa Lockwood, I just have a clarifying question. For PUDs, are they, in the town plan, it says that, measures should be taken to ensure that minimum lot sizes are large enough to accommodate a septic system. And there's references in the plan about septic systems on individual lots. In a PUD, our group, I mean, what is the plan on like group septic systems like this if in the town laws, or sorry, the planning document, they do talk about septic systems being included on individual lots? Is like a PUD a different, do they get special privileges on having one communal septic, or is that just not?
It's something that we'll look at. There are places in town where multiple homes are using a shared septic.
Okay.
It's also up to the state to determine wastewater, which is why they've said they've done the testing, but there's no permits. And there would be nothing that could progress without the state. The town has nothing to do with the wastewater.
Yeah.
Also, PUD is normally put on like town or city water. It is highly not recommended to have their own separate wells. So I'm just kind of curious as why each house in this PUD plan would be put on their own separate wells.
PUDs are on town water where? Other towns?
Normally it is highly recommended for them to be on their own, like be on town or city in a PUD plan.
Maybe in other towns, not in this one. That's not part of our regs. We don't have adequate water supply in
No, I
our
understand that
village
here, but
water
I'm
for
just
that.
saying it normally in a PUD plan.
Possible, but we don't have adequate water in our village water supply to supply a PUD.
It's outside the water district anyways.
It is outside the water district, but even if it was inside the water district, our water supply is at capacity. John, correct or am I wrong?
Basically, I mean, if we had a house or two here or there, we would consider it, but we drained the tanks twice last summer. So
we don't have a capacity. Linda?
I'm concerned because the developer obviously doesn't understand this water issue well enough. You saw the reaction of the room when he said, oh, I've never seen that be a problem. We have 2 500-foot wells and we run out of water every other day if we're not absolutely spot on about who's showering and who's laundering, and we're one of the neighbors. So I'm very concerned that this whole room responded to that and the developer didn't know that. What else has not been taken into consideration that might affect all of us in this room?
Can I just add to the water thing? I have a well that's 1,400 feet and I had to hydrofrack it to get 2 quarts.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, Albert?
So where's the proposed septic for the existing house? That was my brother's house, so I know the septic to that house is non-existent. I can smell it.
I can answer that question if you like.
Please do.
Yeah. So the proposed system is designed to accommodate the existing house. Yeah.
So you're having a proposed system handle 6 homes?
Yeah.
How much minimum bedrooms per house?
These are three bedroom homes.
The same for the 2 up top too?
What's that?
Same for the 2 up top?
Yeah. It's actually, the state rules actually at 5 units, the number of bedrooms actually doesn't matter, so.
And who's going to monitor the output, for instance, with the chemicals and drugs and all the things that go into that septic system? Where's the monitoring process thereafter?
I mean, as Melanie alluded to, you know, all water and wastewater is under state regulation, state permitting. The town really doesn't have any purview to to regulate that. It's all regulated at the state level.
Do the exclusion zones go on the neighbor's property?
So we have it, so that's certainly something that we're gonna look at, and I appreciate the comment from Mr. Bernard, and we'll certainly look at that. We haven't gotten to that stage of you know, getting the application for the state completely done. So, there likely will be some isolation shield issues that we'll have to work out. And again, this is the sketch, you know, this is not finalized. This is our sketch hearing where we're here to, you know, talk through some of the stuff. We're still working on all the details of all the different, you know, components to this design. So that's certainly something that we're gonna be looking at.
Is
and
it
we'll make
possible
sure.
that it could encroach on the neighbor's land?
Well, I mean, again, this is all regulated at the state level. Overshadowing of water and wastewater systems happens all the time. And it's not an uncommon thing. I don't know exactly what the overshadowing is going to be on this system. Given the location of this system, yes, there clearly will be some overshadowing.
Move it.
But again, that's all regulated at the state level.
How big is that septic field there? Or have you not determined yet?
Yeah, this is sized, you know, according to, you know, so it's a mound system.
Yeah.
That's, you know, 10 feet wide by 185, yeah.
Can I add to that? So I'm on top of the hill, I'm the next property over, so here's something mound, it's 50 feet from my well. And that spring you guys planning on abandoning feeds my pond and the Playfuls pond that they draw water from. So what's the guarantee that that overflow zone isn't gonna ruin that spring, which isn't gonna ruin our ponds and our property?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I guess I'll turn to the board at this point to say that, you know, again, this is, any of the water and wastewater stuff, you know, we'll be looking more at that stuff, but this all has to do with state regulation regarding our state permits. I don't wanna, you know, if the board would like me to address any of that stuff to any further detail, I'm happy to do that, but I don't wanna keep going back.
I think those are the reports that we're all looking for.
Yes,
The actual
yes,
data
yes.
backing up that.
This is why the application is incomplete, because they don't have the information for anyone to be able to make a decision. It's a thrown together plan without any real substance.
So I just want to reiterate, that is the point of sketch. It is a preliminary, because it takes a lot of money to do all of the studies, all of the points that everybody would want to see addressed. So this is why we are here, is to collect all of that information so that it can be determined whether or not they want to move forward, if it's even possible, any of those things. This is a sketch plan application. It is not going to answer all of those questions. We want to hear your concerns.
So I think, I'm Katie Martin, a neighboring landowner as well. And I think that's one of my big concerns is a lot of towns have like a three-phase approach to this. And so I think it was a lot of our understanding that once we get through this meeting, there's just one step left. So I think that's a big concern in that a lot of decisions could be made with just 2 meetings.
There might be one meeting left, but there are a lot of points that would need to be met to
Right,
get
but
to
if you
that
guys go to
meeting.
deliberation after this and there's a decision made, then a lot of the concerns that are in this room might not be heard.
Exactly.
That's our point, Katie, of listening to your concerns, because we work for you, right? So the point is, we're hearing your concerns, and this will become part of the deliberative session and be our informed information. That's the whole point of having all of you here. We're not going to make a decision absent all of you. That's why you're here. Albert?
So I'll get us back on track. Just, you know, for the record, when the 5 houses were discussed in the septic, it was not 6, it was 5. So, just to make that point, it seems to be a moving target. Right, so that's a moving target.
I
don't think it said it in the...
At any rate, I just wanted to say that, and I do not at all agree with any encroachment zones coming onto my property. One, my water pipe is right on the boundary, and I'm not excited about that at all.
Bill, you have a question?
So you're on town water?
I am.
Mr. Willie, can you talk loud?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Did you and the firm that you are representing design the septic system on my property, 1130 Berry Road?
Yes, we did.
Was that property and its bedrooms not designed as specific consideration for number of bedrooms, not units at that time?
Yes, yes, it was.
Have those requirements changed?
No.
Is that not in direct contradiction to your earlier statement that it's the number of units, not the number of bedrooms?
So this, the state, the way the state works, up until a certain number.
Well, it's kind of a yes or no question, Luke.
It may seem contradictory, but I could explain it so that it would make sense.
Maybe later in the deliberations, the Development Review Board could come back to you with questions about that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm just curious as to what you expect to sell these houses for.
Oh, we have no idea. We're planning on moving there ourselves.
Well, how big are these houses?
Oh, we're not necessarily selling houses.
Yeah, we're not, we haven't formalized any plan to build these homes.
I can explain that. I can explain that.
Yeah, maybe we can back that up. Maybe we can back that up and introduce ourselves. Yeah.
So I'm Emily, this is my husband Paul. I grew up in Georgia. My parents still live in Georgia, went to BFA St. Albans. We recently owned a home in Fletcher. We've been actively trying to buy property in Fairfield for at least the last 4 years. We've had a very hard time, as I'm sure many people either themselves or know, have had a hard time finding property in Fairfield. So this was an opportunity, unfortunately for the price. It didn't really allow us to only build one house because it was very expensive. So this is a way that we can do it. We are very excited to be a part of this community again. Obviously, a lot of people here care about their community, and that's really important for us. And, you know, we are a young family, obviously, and know a lot of the teachers and staff at the local schools, and are looking forward to having our children grow up in that community, because it's important for us to be part of the small.
Are these going to be affordable houses is the question?
So we could sell them just as lots.
Yeah.
So you could build, I mean,
We're not building on spec.
we're hopefully gonna not have any double wide trailers. We'd like to have a nice, pleasant,
We'd also like to
community.
preserve the beauty of the land and make sure there's covenants and any development rights.
How is this preserving the beauty of the land? I don't
Anyway, the
understand.
question was who we are, and that's who we are, and we are happy to, you know, address anyone's concerns and listen to concerns, and hope that we can continue to be part of this community.
Why the number 9? Why 9? Why so many?
9 is just the number of lots.
So which lot would be yours?
We haven't
be living in?
We haven't
made
decided.
any decisions yet.
You haven't decided?
No.
And are
It's
you
a
from
pretty big
Georgia
project.
also?
No,
Where are you from?
I'm from out of state, I'm from New York. My wife and I moved here about 10 years ago. Like she said, we lived in Fletcher for a number of years. Her family lives in Franklin County, lives in Georgia. I also happen to be an employer in Franklin County. I employ 13 people in this county that are all from Franklin County. Full-time carpenters and laborers. I'm a builder, as well as a remodeler. I've worked on some of your homes, some of your relatives' homes in this town. We are not out-of-towners looking to come in carpetbag here. We want to be part of your community, and we want to provide nice opportunities for other families to also move to this town, and be part of a community that we hope continues to grow with good people.
And, oh, whoa, if you're going to continue to address them, please do it with respect. They're not here to be,
My wife's also 9 months pregnant, so please be mindful of that.
just be kind. I don't want to listen to anybody being unkind. That's not what we are. Hold on, Tori?
I have a question for Luke. You said you have not requested a wetland delineation. I'm curious why, because I know it's free, because the state environmental guy will come out and look at it. And I'm just curious what your reasoning is for not delineating it and doing due diligence.
Yeah, so, it's not free. You know, you have to hire a consultant. The state will come out and confirm it.
I delineated mine for free.
Okay. Well, so the idea behind this proposal is that we're trying to give the wetlands a wide enough berth that we don't have to go through that step. You know, not that we're trying to skirt anything or whatever, just that, again, we're not pushing the boundaries of those wetlands close enough to where, you know, that we think that that's necessary.
John?
So, on that, so from what I understand, you're selling lots?
Potentially.
Potentially,
We
sure.
don't- we don't-
Okay.
we haven't
You-
made any- We have no we plans haven't yet.
commit
to anything at this
Right.
point.
So, let's say they just do, something for the board to consider, let's say they do just sell lots. So we could end up with 7 single-wide mobile homes there.
I do want to say that if whatever we do, I think we definitely would put in covenants that it would maintain a certain standard.
That was the only point I was trying to make, that we would make sure that things are in writing to, within reason,
Again,
preserve those conditions.
We want to live here.
We want to live here.
You know, I'm just.
Yeah,
I-
Sean, it's something
that's why-
we've already thought of.
That's why I asked.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's more than reasonable.
We'd be happy to put that as a
Yeah.
stipulation on any approval.
Just going.
You could try putting that as a stipulation, but to be perfectly honest, it's illegal to discriminate against.
Correct.
Mobile homes?
Mobile homes. That's a state statute.
I think just going
Damien.
back to the legal question of, is the application final?
It is not final, it is absolutely
That's what I'm
not
saying.
final.
I don't think it is final, because there's a lot of questions in there.
And that's the
She's-
purpose of
I
a
mean,
sketch plan.
they're saying we can change our application, we can add to it, we can change this, we can change that.
We can ask
So
for
I
more
would say
things
the
to be
application
completed.
is not final, and if anybody wanted to change this situation, I think tomorrow's the day. Oh, yeah. And the application is probably not final at this point. Tomorrow is a day where everybody could speak their mind, maybe change any rule that they want to, make a motion to change a rule. This application is probably not final at this point. It may be final after tomorrow. So if anybody wants to change anything, I think tomorrow's the day.
That's a good point.
Can I make a question to the board? So, and I, you know, we haven't been privy to any of the, you know, the online discussion, the emails or anything, the letters or anything like that. So, I'm not sure where some of this is coming from, but I guess from our standpoint, I guess we would like a little bit of clarification if there are concerns or questions about the completeness of the sketch application. That would be news to us, and we would be interested in, you know, as far as I know, we have met all the conditions of the sketch
Correct.
application, and that you know, that this is just sketch.
Correct.
And
There's
so-
some, obviously, confusion around that.
Okay.
Yes.
Melissa, can I have a question about
Did Ed leave?
How come the sketch application wasn't made digital for people to have
So,
more access to it?
that's a select board decision that we have not, up until now, ever had anyone ask us for it to be available digitally. It was brought to the select board at the last select board meeting to ask them if they would like us to change that. And they are getting more information before they make a decision. I expect they'll make a decision in the next meeting or two about that. But at this point in time, we are directed by the select board how we make things available, and they have said that that's not what they want us to do right now.
I'd just like to get back to the septic issue a little bit better. You know, what we all are concerned about is that we can go back and fall on the state regulates that, determines this, determines that, but it's us who have to live with the repercussions. And that, I don't think I feel any animosity at all about this. It's just that the state is not gonna take care of our water supply if it's going bad, or the runoff, or whatever's in the stream. So that is an inadequate thought process in my mind too.
I also want to tack on to Tori's point earlier. This really does set a precedent, not only for what we allow as PUDs in this area, but also that it's so close to the village, what's defined as the village by our town plan, that, you know, it does set a huge precedent to put a large, potentially large for this area, development in that area.
So I think it does require a lot of thought and consideration, especially with its proximity to town water supply, proximity to wetlands, proximity to our village, which is a part of the scenicness that we define in our town plan as being important to us.
Bill, did you have something? Yeah.
I'd like to address the board. You should have in front of you 9 requests that I've made. Just to give you a little background, I had the pleasure of running this board for 20 years, from '86 to 2006. This isn't going to be a win-win situation. There's going to be happy and unhappy. Every one of the requests that I've made are legal, and you owe it to the town. You owe it to all the people that are here to very closely examine those requests and impose them.
You can get them. We'll get you copies of all of it.
I'm not going to go through the requests specifically, but after this gets done here in Fairfield, it's going to go to the environmental court. And it's critical that everything that comes out of the applicant be sworn. Because when you get to the environmental court, the difference could be critical. I've asked for you to order them to prove that they can actually financially do this project. I've asked you to make it a condition that you find out what other PUDs she has been involved in so you can actually go and do a site view. Bonding is very important. This project could get started and die. There could be a bankruptcy, there could be a big mess on Church Road, and the only way to get it cleaned up is either out of the taxpayer's wallet or outside of a bond. You have the legal right, it's in the regulations, to require a bond sufficient to cover this project. Now, I've given you a personal story about the aquifer under the town. You can read it for what it's worth. But there should be, at this point in time, based on the fact that we have a water district, that we have so many users in and out of the water district, that there be a comprehensive study of the aquifer. And that should be on the burden of the developer. They're going to drill 8 wells within a very small confined area. The gas company ruptured the aquifer with an 8-inch pipe. So this is, you're fooling around with 100 users here in the village, probably at least another dozen users of the aquifer outside of the water district. I've also asked you for things that are legally responsible for. A wetlands report, a wastewater report, road access permits, and a binding, you should see the binding legal agreement. Don't just leave it hanging up in the air, you know, we're going to conserve the rest of the land. It should be a written document that you can have a lawyer run through, that it's going to be filed. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Does anyone have anything to add that we haven't heard yet? Michael?
Well, I want to, say my side of it. I am a bordering landowner. You've been getting this information from this and saying that you're going to build 9 houses, and won't go into other things about what I'm really pissed off about how this started. We should have had that, but 9 houses. So when you're talking water quality, septic systems, it's concerning to me. 6 houses going on to my brother's, right above his brush line, on their home. Their gardens, their business. Don has a daycare. These people are go-to people in this town. My neighbor Ben, his land will be affected from water quality. We have different kinds of water quality. We have surface runoff that's going into our streams, going to the lake that we're trying to prevent. We have lakes of water in the ground that we're trying to preserve. Ben has a spring that he has the right to that spring that's up on the top of the hill, and they're saying that you're gonna take that spring. You can't take that spring out, you got the right to that spring. And he has another spring by mine, lower, that we don't, you know, when you start talking, you know, if you're at your house and you have a spring and somebody said that they're gonna put one mound system for 6 homes on a place that, I mean, I drive around on that meadow for years. I know how wet it is. I don't think you understand that it's a watershed, that they can't even, the town works all the time just to keep the road there from the amount of water coming out of the woods because of the lay of the land, and it hits the road. And I'm no professional, but pretty far-fetched if you're gonna put a mound system on that type of a slope, on that type of a land. You don't understand how much water comes down through there. It's going to the brook. It's going to my brother's water line. It's going across the onto the north side of the road, onto my land. I'm a dairy farmer. I'm on a grass milk truck. Basically, it means I don't feed grain. I have conditions that I feed my cows 60% of their intake for 150 days of the growing season. That's my property on the other side. I'm very concerned about that. I have seen grasses being poisoned. I've heard about cows dying because of poison grass from man-made air, if you want to call it. I don't want that. When you're talking one mound system and 6 homes going to that mound system on a watershed, and that you don't even, I'm kind of concerned about who's going to buy these homes.
Disbanded the gas commission immediately after it was done.
And
water records were all
the
lost.
traffic, if you got 9 homes, and you got 2 cars for each one of them homes, and you have the people who are having family and friends, that's a lot of traffic.
Good,
So,
thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think what Mike is saying is true. I think what you've designated quote unquote as a wetland area, which you're just saying it is, I don't know that the land that you designated for these lots could be a wet area based upon what the state qualifications are. So to me, before you can put up here, I mean, it's a sketch plan, I get it. But to me, there's just not been enough study to find out whether is this land considered wetlands, or what is the setbacks from wetlands and how far? I know you guys have made some inferences that, well, we set it back. And the gentleman back here said, well, I think that's one of the first things that needs to be done. If that's one of the considerations, I know on our property, there's several things that we can't do because they're designated wetlands. And those things, they expand, they contract, so I think that's the problem I have with it.
Dan?
Yes, after all this is done, and so who makes the final decision? Is it you 5 people? After you listen to everybody, I mean, how do you decide? Is it just the 5 people that decide?
Yes.
Really? Interesting. Okay, that doesn't seem...
Actually, the rules here that kind of decide.
Right.
We just review them and make sure that they're being followed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good point.
That makes sense.
No, we agree, we understand that.
Mary?
I had a point that I wanted to bring out that I didn't think had been brought forward. Mike touched on it.
Thanks,
Traffic is a concern of mine because in the 50 years that we have lived in the village, I have always walked that road. And I don't ever go out walking that I don't meet other people walking there as well. It's a very highly used road because it's quiet, and so it's considered safe because there's very little traffic. And you know, I meet young moms with little children, kids on bikes, older people like me, out walking and riding bikes or whatever. So the traffic increase is a concern that I have, in addition to other things that have been brought forward to the board. So I don't know if that is something that you might decide needed some type of a formal traffic study. But I wanted to verbalize that as one of my concerns. And I also want to thank you all for what you do, because this is not easy. And I know, as Aaron has mentioned, you know, it's not you who make the decision, it's the town plan and the town regulations that have been set forward. But you have to devote your time and your thoughtful process to it, so.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything that hasn't been said yet?
Well, mine's been said some hasn't, and I'd like to thank the board for their work and all they do for this. And I think you got we're kind of in a crossroads here, I feel, and I think it's going to be important going forward. One concern I have is young folks that want to stay in town that are unable to compete with big business coming in to separate stuff. And that's concerning as a young person that moved out of town for many years. Trying to find land to move back in, as they had said, has been challenging, but we finally were able to do that. So it's tough to compete with big business, and if that's the direction we end up going, then that's the direction we end up going. As a neighbor up the road, sugar maker, I come down through there, and I want to touch on the traffic as well, because I'm concerned where the blind spots may be coming out of there and what that may look like. So I would piggyback on what you just said, and I'd love to see a study done to see what that will look like exactly there. And I'm also very concerned, specifically for Mike and for Ben. As farmers there, the town plan is to keep it in agriculture. And I know there's been some towns where they've lost that, and I hate to see it going. It's slowly dissipating, but what's happened is people from out of town come in, they buy the land, they don't like the manure, they don't like the hours, stuff like that. So you only fight for so long before you just give in and say, I'm tired of fighting with the neighbors about everything that I need to do in order to function as a farm. So I ask you to keep that into consideration as we move forward, is what do we want our town to be? I love it, that's why I came back, and I don't know there are many young people in this town that would like to stay in this town and are kind of being forced out because there isn't place for them. They can't compete with big money coming in to buy the area. So again, thank you for your time and work, and it's not an easy decision as to what this is going to look like, but I do think this is going to be our future, and it starts now as to how we're going to progress as a town. I thank you.
Is the land in question certified organic prime ag?
No, I don't know.
It's prime ag.
It's prime, prime estate.
Definitely prime. Is it certified organic?
Yes.
Yes.
So it is certified organic prime ag?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Could we put that as a matter of record?
Like it is certified?
It is certified organic.
Yeah, Mike said it's certified organic.
Certified prime.
Certified organic prime ag, could we put that as a matter of record?
And if just to add to that, if you look in the development regulations, it says where farmland and or prime or statewide agricultural soils, which where the house site is exactly where the prime soil is, and then surrounding it is the state soils. Anyways, where farmland and prime or statewide ag soils are present within a subdivision or PUD, all or part of this land shall be included in any required open space or conservation lot. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the exact opposite of what the development regs are saying, because basically the conservation space is a swamp, and then the backside near the wood line. So, I know the developer, Luke, I know you're saying you think you meet the sketch plan, but I think a lot of us agree that you don't meet the sketch plan because you are not actually following a lot of the development regulations in that sense.
Thanks, Tori. Anybody have anything new to add?
They've got the power to make 8 units right on the top of that townhouses. They've got the power to do that.
Right.
One thing that may seem minor to you is not
Right.
clear to me. In your plans and in your, whatever you end up doing, you need to remember there's a fire department down there. And they have a job to do. And my house is standing today because of them. So pay attention. Water, access.
Does anyone have anything new to add? It's a big job, folks. Thank you all for your input. We appreciate you.
I have a question. We have letters to hand to you. Do we do that now?
Yeah,
I
you
don't want
wanna
to close the meeting and not be able to hand my letter in.
I want all the letters so that we can copy them and make them available for everyone, including the developers.
So before we close here, I mean, so this is a sketch hearing.
Yeah.
Right, so, I mean, the purpose of this meeting is for us to come with a, kind of a concept plan, right? And to be able to have discussion with the board on what, you know, what things do we need to look further at? What things does the board have for concerns and stuff? I haven't really heard any of that yet, and I'm wondering if his,
Conversation, please.
we've heard from the public, but what I'm really interested in is what the board, you know, what feedback the board has for us. Again, knowing that, you know, the purpose of this is for us to gather information to then be able to improve our plan, refine it, and then come back for a final. So can we get some feedback from the board, or are there things that the board, you know, that we can have some discussion here with the board in order for us to, you know, address any concerns that you have, or get a list of things that, you know, we need to look more into.
So we will have a deliberative session to discuss all of the concerns that we heard, but you heard the same things we
Yeah.
did. And so we will share the concerns of our people.
Okay.
We'll
And during
go-
that deliberative session, we'll review your plan, and if we have any questions for you later, we'll get back to you.
Okay.
But we have to take into consideration all the people who are concerned.
Sure.
And we have to look at our plan and see where the two meet and where they don't.
Reconcile
And
the standards.
try and
Yeah.
reconcile all of the standards to what you have proposed, and we'll go from there.
So I guess if I can, just make, you know, one last point, just in response to a lot of the things that I've heard here tonight, which a lot of it has revolved around water, wastewater, you know, stormwater, and wetlands. And I just want to make kind of a final statement to the board, that, you know, those are all 4 of those are state regulated, you know, entities, processes that we'll be going through. And, you know, those, that's all stuff that we're working through, and we're working through with the state as part of the state regulation process, meeting all of the state rules and all of the things that come with that.
We understand that.
Yeah, okay.
What's the next step? I know you guys have your deliberate session, and then either you're gonna say, yes, it's approved, it goes to the final plat review, or no, there needs to be another sketch plan. And I guess, either way, does that get mailed to only the abutting landowners, or how does that get disseminated?
Anybody who is listed as an interested party, which all of you are here, and you have, that's why you signed in and put your address, so as long as I can read your address, you will get a certified letter of the decision when it is issued by the board. Again, at the close of the hearing, they have 45 days to issue their decision. Pick up your certified mail, please.
Thanks, Mel.
So, again, just to close the loop on this, are there any questions based on this? Are there any questions from the board for us that we can help the board in your deliberative session? Is there anything that was sparked out here that you would like us to comment further on? Just want to make sure that, you know, you guys don't get into deliberative session and have a bunch of questions that we could answer for you now, you know?
I guess I'm just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, just again, back to my original question of doing a PUD instead of a subdivision would have allowed you to use smaller lot sizes, which potentially could conserve the agricultural, could serve to preserve some of that.
I don't believe so. I think it's the opposite, actually. If the conventional subdivision would be 1 acre minimum, which is essentially what we have.
Right.
PUD, there is provision in the regulations for PUD to request reduced lot sizes.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
Is you could have, is there potential to do a smaller lot size to preserve some of that meadow land, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that's definitely on the table. Again, that's what we're here for. That's what, you know, are there things, and that might be something that we could absolutely look at and do. Yeah, reducing some of those. Again, that requires board approval. So if the board is saying that you'd be willing to grant that, I think that's absolutely something that we could look at, yeah.
Aaron?
Yeah, I was right along that same line.
But likewise, that might allow for a, I did drive by the area and I'm familiar with it. I'm assuming the leach field, the mound there is on the lowest part of the property.
Correct.
Perhaps that could be, if you were using smaller lot sizes,
Yeah.
it potentially could be relocated so it's not abutting so close to the neighbor.
John Melnick, I live on Dairy Road.
But I guess it's all downhill from wherever it
As,
would be.
seems like everyone has a lot of concerns still. Is there a possibility that this stays not closed at the end of this meeting, but just remains open so we can have a continued discussion about this?
No, because we're not going to be here for another 3 hours.
Not tonight.
No. Adjourned or recessed,
Adjourned.
Like recess for another date.
or adjourned.
That's why I had my hand up, because I was gonna say, in my initial questioning, you said that's a question of legality. So if it came to fruition that if, I was correct, I'd be disappointed that the meeting was closed as opposed to adjourned with the possibility of addressing it at another time, given that that time would probably most likely give you time to amend those and they would come into play. Thank you.
It is up to the board to decide whether or not they close the
Absolutely.
hearing or not. And like I said before, if they were to close, we're gonna have the same discussion. So this is why we're trying to ask you, is there anything else? They might close the hearing and still have 45 days to make
45 days, so if it's not closed, then.
If it's not closed, we will go to another meeting, and that meeting will be a month from now. It is up to the board to decide whether or not it's closed. If it's not closed, it can still go into deliberative session. We would then reconvene this same meeting for a sketch plan review at the next planning commission meeting.
I think given that the board hasn't really looked at all the information, I think I would personally like it to be recessed, so that way we know that everybody's looking at all the same things and everybody's on the same pages.
We've all looked at it, Katie, we just hadn't heard all of you yet.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, like I know there's been requests for hydrological studies, traffic studies, impact studies, and so I think that a recess, so that way we're not locked into a 40-day period would be nice. How would the studies be done in 45 days that we're requesting? I don't understand. If we close the meeting, then how is it possible that all of those things could be accomplished in 45 days?
45 days is how long the board has to issue a letter. They do that whenever they make their decision and they decide what the next steps are. 45 days is only to issue a decision.
And the decision could include
Could
that
include
these
those things.
studies need to exist.
Before we would even look at a final, if we got to that point, a final application as being complete.
If the board says those studies don't need to be done, they can jump past that. If they say it needs to be done, then it needs to be done in 45 days, or however long it takes.
So can someone help us all to understand, what would be the benefit of closing the meeting versus not closing, or what would be the benefit of not closing versus closing? Which is the thing
Well,
that
my request is to keep it adjourned so we can have some of our concerns answered, all of us. We all have concerns about all of this that we're not getting answered at all in this meeting.
That's up to the board.
And I understand this meeting's about this right now, but nothing's being answered. We're giving you our concerns, but nothing's being answered, and that's why we'd like to have this adjourned, so we could come back and have stuff answered to us, and then go from there.
Yeah.
That's what we're all asking for.
Aaron? Yeah.
Thank you.
He's just asking who you are.
Oh, okay, sorry. I guess my only point to that would be that, we have an obligation to listen to your concerns, but we also have an obligation to the applicant
I understand
to keep a process that they're, that we are all towing the line here and that things happen in a fairly speedy manner. So, that's why we deliberate afterwards.
As a town and as us people, as a town, I mean, we should matter just as much, if not,
Oh, yeah.
if not more.
Everybody matters.
I know, but if not more.
Well,
Aaron?
yeah.
Sorry, can I just say that, all things considered, and this being completely new territory for the town and everyone here, wouldn't that be cause to justify kind of slowing everything down so that everything can be assessed and concerns can be addressed and kind of bring everybody together on the same page?
Well, yes, in some respects, Kelly. But also I do feel that, this could happen to any development going on anywhere, or even somebody building a house in a place that's, maybe that the neighbors aren't excited about. So we can't really, I won't say for the rest of the board, but I think that personally, I don't think it's a great idea to delay things too much. Yes, we need to carefully consider this. This is important, obviously very important to people. But how much we're delaying things has to be kind of considered also.
When has there been a delay for PUD in Fairfield?
There hasn't been a PUD application.
So therefore, this might need to have that exception made, because this has never happened before.
Duly
I
noted.
agree with what you're saying, that we don't want to start precedents on a home or.
The standards also indicate that if a decision is not made within that 45 days, that the applicant can assume that it has been approved.
They can assume it?
Yes. So a decision does have to be rendered. Now, obviously, it could be a continuation and continuation, but it was,
45 days from the
still has to
closure of the
be,
meeting. So if we don't close the
still has to
meeting.
be within
So if we don't
45
close the
days.
meeting though, then that's not 45 days.
Is it the closing of the meeting or the time of the application?
Closing of the meeting,
So the meeting would not be closed.
So, the 45-day period starts once the board decides the meeting is closed.
Okay.
So you can continue it once. I have rarely heard of it going any longer than that, because it's also about if there is additional information or concerns that have not been raised. So like we keep asking, is there any more information or any other concerns that have not been listed?
I'm wondering if the people that are online have been able to have their voices heard, and perhaps a little bit of extra time for them to be able to voice and be able to hand in letters and whatnot might be fair to the people who aren't present tonight.
So people have emailed me letters. I believe those are some that are online. So I did receive letters today that were emailed, and I gave them to the board if they got them to me before the meeting started.
Anyone who's online have anything they'd like to add?
This is Jeanne, and are you able to hear me right now?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so my only concern is the talk of the certified letters that are going out, that will go out, because the recent, stuff that was going on the Hill Road, the sublots that Patty was doing, we received our certified letter on Saturday. We had to go to the post office, we went on Tuesday, and the meeting had happened on Monday. So that doesn't work well. So I feel like, you know, when there's certified letters going out, we should be getting those ahead of time, so this time to get to the post office.
So the notification went out a lot sooner than that.
What's that?
The notification went out a lot sooner than that.
The notification was received at my house on Saturday. And the meeting was on Monday. We didn't get to the post office Tuesday to find out it had already happened.
How long before
On that point, you have 15,
You have 15 days.
you have 15 days to pick it up.
Received it like 1 or 2 days after like the first notification.
Yeah, I don't know, that could be a mailman probably.
Melissa, you have 15 days to pick up a certified letter,
Make
so
sure that these letters go out.
you should be given at least 15 days before the meetings.
I sent those out myself, and I know they went out well in advance of the meeting, because I sent them personally.
Each certified letter is sent with, we do, mail receipt. So I can also see when they were initial, so I did look those up and they were, a couple notifications went out from the post office that there was a certified letter to pick up. Most people don't pick up their certified letters or miss a notification. We still have to follow what's in our bylaws and state statute to send a certified letter. That is what the state has decided.
It's hard to make out what you're saying. You're kind of going in and out, but.
Sorry, the joy of the
I mean, I
internet.
don't know what the problem is with the mail. I know we've had problems.
Not
Since
me anymore.
everyone has left. I'm just suggesting.
Not me anymore.
If it's mailed on Saturday, you get it on Tuesday. It's not a mail problem.
Yes,
So, Church Road's a town road, right?
yes.
So runoff's the state, right? Where does the runoff combine with the town? Because if you dump all that runoff from those roads into those ditches and then your roads right the road, then it's my problem as a taxpayer in the town, which would be you guys, right? Which would be the infrastructure. So would that be something where the board looking into that and asking for something from them based on the state report of the runoff and how they're gonna address culverts down that road, runoff onto that road, erosion off that road?
That's part of Mo looks at that, doesn't he? When
So I can say two things to that to the board. As I said at the beginning, this project will be subject to a state operational stormwater permit. So this will have to have a designed and permitted state stormwater runoff that will take care of all of the runoff, surface runoff from this site will be subject to a state permit and a state designed to treat that according to the state standards. It will also have to have a state construction stormwater permit, which will regulate all of the construction activities while things are being built.
But
Thank
where
you.
does the taxpayer pick up that for the town of Fairfield? Because where do you leave off your state runoff? Is your runoff to the ditch? Is it 50 feet down the ditch? Where is it in terms of our ditching? Because like, when it came through, when I built my place, I had to put a bigger culvert based on that. Well, that culvert's bigger, flows more water down the road, which erodes down the road.
So I'll just say, the intent of the state stormwater process and that permitting process for an operational state stormwater permit is that you have all kinds of list of treatment standards that you need to
I'm
make
not worried
for
about
them.
treatment, I'm worried about
gallons per minute.
Right, so what I'm trying to say is part of those standards are regulating the runoff rate from the site. So for the water that gets off of this site and into the roadside ditch is regulated by the state process. And you have to have treatment measures.
Detention ponds.
Yes, yeah, and all according to the state rules, but it's all intended to mitigate the effects of runoff so that we're not increasing the runoff burden on off property.
Off property in our
Yeah.
ditches.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's something the town should have to make sure our ditches comply with what's coming off for the state recommendations.
Yeah, and that will all be part of, the final design would include, all that design, and that would all be.
Part of the application?
It's not part of the sketch plan, but it will be part of the final.
Final.
Yeah, not part of the application.
Just for the sake of stating it, there goes more of the meadow. If you have to have containment ditches, I mean, that may be in your conservation space, but nonetheless, it's ugly and it is in the meadow.
And
That's all I'll say about that.
Hello?
I just want to go back to the point about the meeting and wish that you would continue the meeting, not continue tonight, I don't know the proper term,
Adjourn.
not close the
Recess.
meeting, because I just feel like there's so much information that you need to read in our letters and take into account, and then I think somebody else was trying to articulate this, but this is the first PUD, and I think it does warrant a measured approach that is so it's thoroughly vetted, because this is gonna set a precedent for other PUDs in this town.
Thanks, Earl.
How about if I make a motion that we recess? Find out who wants to recess here.
I second it.
Okay.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks all for your input. We appreciate it.
Town meeting tomorrow, we're getting warmed up.
I think I'll show the gym now.
Anyone? Anything? We're good? All right, I think we're done here for tonight. Thank you all very much.
Are we recessed?
Are we recessing this?
I got more questions.
Yeah, recess.
I want to tell you a story.
All right, so we've taken a little bit of time to deliberate, and we recognize that there's an awful lot for us to go through. So we have made a decision, I guess. Does someone want to make the motion?
Make a motion to continue or recess,
Continue to 30 days, being the first Monday in April, which I don't have my, actually I do have my calendar. Hold on. April 3rd. We have to have a definitive date, so April 3rd, we will continue until April 3rd.
April 3rd, 7 PM.
Somebody second?
I second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Let me just say that at that moment of April 3rd, we will not have answers to any of your questions. We will have a definitive group of questions that we will need to ask for answers for, right? Because we'll have had time to go through all of your stuff and look at everything, but we're not going to have the answers to them. We will have a very solid list of questions that we will then maybe ask them to work on. That's what a sketch is. Is that right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Doing our best, guys.
Thank you for your time.
We appreciate